before we even adopt the agenda, we have some pleasant business to conduct. Employee Recognition 2017. Now, one of the best things about having a CAO that is local is that he recognizes that there are people here that we have not recognized for 2 years, 3, 7 years, 6 years. I mean, you know, these are the backbone of our community, and we haven't even had the courtesy to come and say, you know, thank you very much for working for our town, and we appreciate the work you've done. So today, the CAO has compiled the list, and we are going to be giving out some small tokens of our appreciation. And is there cash involved too? A little bit of better tokens of appreciation than just what I'm giving. Talk to him. Talk to the treasurer. So.
There's not enough money in my
Yeah. So. I'm going to call you up individually. I get to shake your hand, which is always a pleasure because some of you I don't see very often. And who's taking pictures? Me. Where do we want it? Do we want to move these out?
You want the flag?
No, I think we'll just. Yep. So, the first person is Anita Fisher. Please come forward and accept our appreciation. It says 5 years. Is it only been 5? 7. Well, make a note. We'll see you again in, what, 10 years? 3 years. We'll see you again in 3 years.
Veronica's not here.
Veronica is not here, and she is 5 years?
Yes.
Wow. Oh, I should say, you know, with all of these people, the 13 employees, we've got 214 years of service for our community. These are long-term employees. Tim Roberts?
Yeah.
5 years?
5 years.
5 years. Thank you very much for your service. Lionel is here. Now I know Lionel because he's our Christmas Santa Claus since Christmas elf. And it's 5 and 10 years?
He's worked over 10 years.
Over 10 years. Don Dubé, where is he hiding? Another over 10 years?
Yes.
Yep.
Great.
Way over 10 years.
Way over 10 years.
I remember Don.
Kerry Gordy. Kerry Gordy is our tree person. That's why I know him. He's always up there. How many?
15 years.
15 years. That's why our elms look so good in our town. He looks after our trees. Mike Denty. Oh, now here's a guy who filled some good shoes, and he did a great job doing it.
Thank you.
How many years? 15
20,
years.
yeah.
But you notice no hair? That came in the last 2 years. Joseph Hyde. 20 years? Really?
Yeah.
Well, you've been hiding, I can tell.
His last name is Hyde.
He's taking after his
Tom's not
name.
here.
Tom's not here, and he is a 20-year, over 20?
Over 20 years.
Over 20-year employee. Tom's the one that keeps all of our equipment running, so,
Along with Dave.
along with Tim. That's where I've seen him. Yes, over there, okay. Peter Key. Ah, this gentleman, we talk about him all the time. He is the one, he's the one that found us a better chemical
I thought you
supplier.
were going somewhere else.
So anytime we need to say how our staff is looking for and trying to find us ways to be more efficient, Peter Key's name comes up just like that. So obviously you've done well. Oh, Brian Martinson, who is this guy?
He's not here today.
Congratulations. We're waiting for the 30-year one. No. Vern Walker, another one of our great employees. 30 years. Take a good picture here. The one that runs our water plant and water supply and our gas system and just about anything else that I have a question for. Between these two, then they filter down for the rest of you. Ask the question and then it filters back up to me. Oh yeah, we can. Yeah, I'll tell Linda that. No, I won't. I will massage it so she can understand it. Then I will tell her. So thank you very much for the staff of Town of High Prairie. You know, when I was first elected, I said that I would look for efficiencies, but really what I meant was you would look for efficiencies, and you have surpassed what I asked for. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in, guys. Huh? The group? Okay.
Didn't say which group, just a group picture.
Come up here and we'll.
I don't know where I'm gonna stand, but.
Why don't stand right in front of you?
We'll stand right in front of
Right
you.
here, right here, Brett.
Huh?
Stand right here.
Yeah, just move it back.
It's in the light.
Brian's gonna be so long he wants to meet again.
Hey, Brian, you gotta go to the front.
Call guys in the back.
Fantastic. Awesome.
You'll see right now.
Thank you, everyone. That's awesome. Milo, you can stay if you want.
Oh, that's my cue.
Are they gonna pay the check over there? Just go?
No, leave it open.
It's okay.
Thank you. So the 13 employees, 214 years, that's an average of 16 and a half years per employee. So I would have to say that the town is we're a good employer and we have fantastic employees. So, okay. We'll now move on to the adoption of the agenda. Could I have a motion then? And I do not see any additions, so the motion will be for the adoption of the existing agenda. Councillor Rose? So, all in favor? If there are opposed? None? We have a scheduled delegation, and we would ask Mr. Van Meulen from Northern Lakes College to please come forward. Terry, could you turn the microphone on for him? Maybe put it down, thank you.
Thank you. How much time do I have?
15 minutes, but who's counting?
Okay.
Four more.
Nice to see everybody out. I hope all your campaigns are going well. I've done that job, you know. It's an interesting one. Thought I'd come tonight and talk a little bit about Northern Lakes College and the proposed High Prairie campus. So let me first start off by telling you what we are, because I think it's very important to understand that Northern Lakes College is not like any other college in Alberta. In fact, it might go so far to say there's probably only 2 other colleges like this. We're a distance learning college with community-based campuses. So we're distance learning in the sense that you can stay at home and take our courses. But because we serve many, many small communities, often quite poor communities, if you can't afford the connectivity at home, you can come to one of our campuses. Our campuses, almost any community gets a campus if we have enough money, with about 12 students, and that gives us 1 instructor that we call a learning facilitator and an access facilitator. An access facilitator is always a local hire who knows the community well and knows prospective students, is known to the community so that prospective students don't have to be too brave in going to them and saying, I'd like to try something. What do you think I need to start with? And that's how we get into the distance learning. That also means, of course, that we have only limited use for things that other colleges value highly, such as student residences, because we serve people in their communities. In fact, that in many ways was the essence of my convocation address here in High Prairie for this year's convocation, and that is that we meet the needs, the adult learning needs of a community in that community. We don't ask people, unless the numbers simply don't warrant it, to come to another community. Now, some of the courses, of course, will require, say, lab experiences, such as our practical nurse program, that will require you for the lab portion, for the clinical, to come to a place that's got clinical facilities. But all of the theory stuff, you can do at home. And if you have connectivity in your own home, actually in your home, not just in your home community. And probably the big breakthrough this year is that for the very first time, we've been given permission to go trades online. I think we're probably the first in Canada to be doing that. It's going to be a little tough. We're going to have to prove ourselves step by step by step with every one of them. But it means that somebody can come to us when we've got the full range of trades programs online, do all the theory from home or from their home community, and then only come to one of our shops when they have to do shop work. And by the way, our shops, we have 2 of them that are movable. You may very well have seen them. They're commonly known as transformers, and they're basically great big expandable trades trailers. And that's what we are. So we're all over the place. We could be in a community, for instance, like East Prairie. We've been in East Prairie probably since the beginning in 1970. Right now, we don't have a campus there because there is insufficient demand. But we have, when we leave a community, we don't leave. We stay. We don't stay with an instructor in a classroom. We stay with an access facilitator and a community access point, so that those few people in the community that need connectivity for distance learning still have a place to go to. They won't find an instructor there to coach them through their lessons or anything like that, but they will find an access facilitator who will come and open the building and make sure the building remains secure, make sure that everything's running and connected and everything else, and will help with a few questions. Not answering them, but forwarding them to the right people. And so they can still get in contact with registrars and counselors and all of that kind of stuff. So we don't leave a community. Paddle Prairie is another community that we've been sort of in and out of. Many communities, we've had a campus, then back to a community access point, then to a campus, then back to a community access point. And we've been doing this business now for, 47 years. And we've always been community-based in all of that time. And for most of that time, we've had elements of distance learning. It's just that now we are really unique in that virtually after a couple of years, when we get our entire trades calendar online, every student that comes to the college will do part of their program online. So that's what we are, okay? Now let's talk about the High Prairie campus, and let's talk about what it isn't. Again, as I said, we meet the needs of the adult learning needs of a community in that community. So that when we open a campus, it doesn't mean that there's any threat to a nearby campus. Opening the High Prairie campus will not threaten the existing campus in Peavine. If East Prairie comes back with 12 students, it will not threaten reopening them. It doesn't threaten Gruard. It doesn't threaten any of them. That's not how we operate. We don't take from one community to give to another community. Again, our basic operating principle is that we meet wherever feasible, we meet the adult learning needs of the community in that community. So, what is it? What is the campus going to be? We've been working on this campus. It's been I think, the top priority for the college before I became chair. but I've been chair now for 3 years, and we've been working on it quite enthusiastically for that period. The principal partners, the 2 school divisions and ourselves, started meeting in May of 2015. And we've been talking about the basic concept, the merits of partnership, the ins and outs. We learned a lot from the experience of Holy Family, because Holy Family has a tripartite partnership in the town of Grimshaw, not with a college. I believe theirs is a public system, separate system, and the town. But it's an interesting way that they approach the joint high school and then use that joint high school core to expand services to the broader community, which is fundamentally what we're proposing to do as well. We're trying, in this town, we're trying to consolidate basically 3 properties that we had until this year. We own the old Fish and Wildlife, which is largely our academic upgrading, university studies, that kind of thing at the other end of town. Then the health campus downtown, where we do the nursing and things like that. And then we had an arrangement with Tolco to do trades out there. And we had trades trailers in the building, at the back of the building. I certainly don't begrudge Tolco opening again. I'm really glad they opened, but it really has put some impetus behind this project for us to get our trade space back so that we can go back to it. One of the advantages of the trade space and of all that space coming together with the partnership too, though, is one of the things that we value highly as a college. We have dual credit agreements with, I think, 12 different school systems right across northwestern Alberta. And if you want to imagine the area we serve, go to the town of Athabasca, where we have a campus. In fact, I'm going there tomorrow to have a tri-partner conversation there. Just take a line from Athabasca straight north to the border, straight west to the border, and with the exception of Grand Prairie and Fairview, we serve everybody else. That's how big we are. We're spread all over the place. I think our northernmost campus is Chatai, just north of High Level. We do work as far south of Athabasca, Fox Creek, all in that area, okay? So, coming back to the campus. It's meant to consolidate the 3 existing properties. It's meant to take advantage of partnership for the dual credit. As I said, in that huge expanse of western Alberta, we do dual credit everywhere. We value it highly. So the partnerships are going to come in really well. Now, we realize that the school systems aren't on the same funding timeline as we are. We have said from the very beginning, when we had our meeting just with the 3 principal partners, and then when the municipalities joined, that when we got our money, we would start. We weren't going to hold back. We weren't going to wait. Funding is too perishable. It's got a fairly short shelf life, and we were going to go. Out of all of our conversations, since May of 15, we've slowly come together to the idea of building somewhere where we would build, because we expected to get money first, and the 2 school systems would build a joint high school, similar to what they have in Grimshaw, and they have in many other communities in Alberta, and that they would build adjacent to our facility. That meant that we needed land. We've always said that that land must come to us with 3 characteristics. And we've said this from the very beginning. It must be free. It must be clean. And it must be timely. Why? Because we already have sufficient land to just build the college project on at the old Fish and Wildlife, which is free, which is clean, and which is timely. And so that's what we're looking for. Free, clean, and timely. So we did spend a lot of time talking about the merits of the hospital site. And unfortunately, the hospital site doesn't tick a box on any one of those three. It's not free. They want $855,000 for it. It's not yet clean, and there's no budget for cleaning it yet. As far as we know, the earliest they'll get a budget is April 1, the next budget year. It's not going to be cheap to clean either. That's a big building. There's a lot of asbestos tiles and insulation and everything else in it. The asbestos abatement itself is going to be lengthy and expensive. And so it's not timely. We want to get the project completed in 3 years. I want shovel in the ground, and we've been pushing our senior management on this point. I want shovel in the ground before the next election. Before the next election, which is what, April of 18. And that's what 19. So that's what we're pushing for. So we were left with other options. And we have been talking a bit about the E.W. Pratt site. In fact, a previous president, Rick Neidig, had lengthy discussions with the school partners about E.W. Pratt as a possible site. And that just didn't take off. There was some movement toward that. In fact, the college bought some portable facilities for that, and it didn't work out. And subsequently, we moved those portable facilities up to Fort Vermilion, and they're very happy up there with a double in size campus. But the basic concept, right from when Rick was talking about it, was that we would find some way to craft a tripartite agreement with the two school systems. And it finally came down to which is the oldest of the schools. And the oldest of the schools, the oldest core in it, is High Prairie Elementary. I know that because I was around in 1956 when it was first opened. So that's the oldest one. So we said there also is an educational reserve right next to it. So the suggestion was made, let's go for that. It's free, it's clean, and it's timely. And it has the added quality, which is very, very significant to us, which it means it beats out the Fish and Wildlife, our own land, because it creates the partnership opportunity. And the partnership opportunity comes back to not just the dual credits, but now, for instance, we've already made a commitment. The board has officially made a commitment that we will take the outreach school into our building and build space for them in our building. Because the outreach school, which is the High Prairie School Division and Holy Family contribute to, sits on that plot of land. So we said, fine. In many ways, they're almost our natural students anyway. So we'll take them in. We'll build the shops. We are going to try to replace the space that we had at Tulco with good trade shops. We will have the health careers that are right now in the old Napa, and before that, it was IGA. And all of the academic, from academic upgrading, let's say grade 4 equivalency, up to the B.Ed and the BSW, and first and second year university, all of that stuff we hope to put in there and take advantage of that economy of scale, which means that High Prairie School Division and Holy Family, when building their high schools, won't have to worry about things like shops. They will already be there, so they can focus on other things. And there's a number of very interesting community-oriented suggestions coming out of those conversations, but I would invite you to interview or have those presentations made by the respective chairs or superintendents. I'm not going to speak for them. The only thing I will say, and that I'm able to say on their behalf, is that they are making commitments to each other to move toward a joint high school adjacent to our college. Out of all of this, we want to bring all of the students and the programs that we currently offer in High Prairie into one building. We hope to get some efficiencies and economies out of that. We want to go on a fundraiser. I would like to, instead of having $21.6 million, I'd prefer $25 million, and so we're going to go on a fundraiser. And we'll go into our own reserves a bit to help that out. We are well along in the process, by the way. We are probably only 3 weeks away from choosing the designer. We've gone through the qualification process that you normally do, so that we had 6 qualified candidates, and now we've gone through that process, and the committee that's looking at it expects to make a decision sometime before Remembrance Day, for sure. Once we've got that done, and we already have done the program analysis, because it's fairly easy to do, the programs are the ones we've always offered in this community, so they're the first ones we're going to try build into the building. We, combined with a fundraising campaign, plan to go to public consultation and a sort of a general idea gathering thing, and quite candidly, fundraising as well, early in the new year, as soon as practical in January. So that means sometime after, probably around the middle to late January. That's sort of our deadline for that one. We want to have equipment on the land, digging up dirt, hopefully next fall. I would really, really be happy if I drive by there a year from today and I see equipment on there. That's our schedule. We have 21.6 million. I think it's about 900,000 of that is for the planning phase. The rest is for construction. And again, we want to raise money. We've had some interesting, I wouldn't say offers, but indications that people are interested in donating. And, you know, in a campaign like that, in a small community like this, $20 is a good place to start. It really is. You know that yourselves. That, you know, if you can just get started there, and then as people are, and the businesses chip in, and, you know, you add a few zeros to that number, you'd be surprised how much you can get out. You know, look at the success of the hospital auxiliary over the years of the work they've done. And I think that, you know, we can do that. I've lived in this community now for, 61 years, that it's either lived in or around and considered it my home. So I think it's doable. I think putting a $25 million mark on the wall is achievable, and I hope we go further, because there's a couple of things that we'd like to add, and I wouldn't want this to be taken as a promise, but they are aspirational. We would like to add culinary arts, which is a program that we don't have anywhere in the college. They're expensive programs, the two that we'd like to add, but we don't, which is probably one of the reasons why we don't have them. But now that trades are going online, culinary arts is, I think, a really good one, and then the heavy equipment technician one. And again, because trades is going online, it's just a matter of wherever you have the shop, you can generally provide for housing sufficient for the apprentices to come to. We have a power lab, for instance, for the power engineers. It's in Peace River. Shell made a significant contribution, as did many others, to it. And one of the things that we got enough money for was basically to rent a townhouse. So that while we don't really have student residences in Peace River, effectively we do. We were able to rent the townhouse and put 4 to 6 students in it. And that's basically all we would need to be able to support heavy equipment around here. Apprenticeship isn't easy, it's expensive, and it depends on industry. It depends on industry to indenture the students, because you can't get past pre-employment or first year without indentureship. But by being able to go online, we don't have to depend on one community supporting an entire class of 12. That's very difficult to find 12 journeymen who will take on an apprentice each. But in the total region that I described to you, remember, just draw a line from Athabasca North and Athabasca West. In that region, we can find that many journeymen who will take apprentices. And then it's just a matter of having shops. And for those that we have transformers for, and we'll probably look at adding to the fleet of 2 that we have now. We'll probably go to 3, depending on the success of the first 2. That's going to be one of our emphases. So I hope I haven't gone over time, but I've tried to tell you what we are. We're a multi-campus, community-based distance learning system and have been for a very long time. Long ago, when we found out that the old provincial rights system didn't in fact hang up at end of day, but that in fact it stayed alive all evening, we started doing distance education in the evenings as well. I've tried to tell you what this project isn't. It isn't a threat to any other community. We're not closing anything to make this one possible. Okay? And I've told you what it is. It's a three-way partnership to bring our three properties together, to bring something hopefully within, let's say, a period of time frame of 5 years, a joint high school adjacent and ultimately connected, so that we can take advantage of the student numbers. And we've already made commitments to the outreach school, and we're in the process of drafting a three-way partnership. And the program work has already started. We haven't got to actual design, but as I said, we'll have designer in place by hopefully Remembrance Day, and we'll start putting some basic sketching together for that so that we can go public with our plans, sufficient sort of boundaries to that plan so that we can go public and gather ideas from the public as to how they think we should be oriented, what kind of programs, if we found the money, should we be adding, and ideas again about fundraising. So that's what we are, that's what the project isn't, and that's what the project is. Thank you.
All right, councilors, you have a decision to make. The presentation was for 15 minutes, and if you wish to ask questions, then I need consensus.
I need consensus that we will extend the presentation time. Is there anyone against extension? Seeing none, we can open the floor then to questions if anybody has any. And what I will do is I will go around once and then I will go around twice. And that will be the allotment of time that we will give to this. And I would like to start with Councillor Gilroy. Do you have any questions?
Looking at the press release by the High Prairie School Division, I'm assuming that map is fairly accurate as to the land that they have initially offered you, the far piece.
The plot of land is the piece, the educational reserve immediately east of the High Prairie Elementary School. That transfer has taken place.
Yes. My question would be, knowing how our, as you said, the money has a stale date on it. If the
All government money has shelf life.
that's right.
So does yours.
It's called Election Day. No. What I was thinking is that if there is a delay on the funding for the two partners, do you have a plan of knowing where you've got it located roughly on the on that press release? Do you have a plan in place for traffic control, since it's in the far end, is from what I saw in the press release?
Our students, if you go to our campuses, you'll see, in fact, not a great number of vehicles. Our students tend to walk. In fact, the concentration of our students are within immediately, 5 minutes walking area of the proposed site. Okay? So you're not going to get significantly heavier traffic because of the student numbers. I think when they go to a joint high school, because high school students tend to have vehicles, then it's a matter of how they orient their parking lot. And I hope they would wisely orient their parking lot right off the North Road. And because it's the one that makes the most sense, and there used to be parking there. But for ourselves, if you were to go to our buildings, our students tend not to, many have vehicles, and so it's largely just the staff.
Hi, Dan. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. in the discussion with the other partners, do you know, or can you even say, is there any room or any place for a sports part of the college? I know they don't do that now, but there's other facilities, or like, for example, like Lakeland College has a sports program with hockey and different things.
That's one of the things that you give up when you're spread out like we are, that we don't have that kind of what the other colleges tend to have, those intramural athletics. We happen to have a pool in Slave Lake, but that's a municipal responsibility, not the colleges. The advantage of where we are is that once the joint high school is situated, at least in theory, in concept, then the development of playing fields can take place. And the playing fields don't have to respect the legal boundaries. I mean, we'll have a fair amount of empty land there as well. So I expect all of that will go ahead. But unfortunately, the way our college is organized, we don't have the pleasure of intramural athletics.
That was also my add-on question, was with the high schools coming in, as far as a field or an external field or internal field for football or for other sports, like, which is going on now in our community with the joint schools with the football, right? And that was my question.
And the conversations that have been held, and I should point out, we've had a lot of meetings. Some of the meetings just from the 3 principal partners, but at least half of the meetings with the 2 municipal partners as well. There's always been discussion about what can be added, and particularly from a community point of view, there's been talk about performance arts and things like that. But I hesitate to in any way really talk even aspirationally about that, because that's not sort of on our side of the fence right now.
Councillor Panasic, did you want to declare a conflict of interest?
No, because we're not, there's no decisions or anything being made here.
You're quite sure on this, because this is something that, if you look in the MGA Act, it does say that if it is something that is impacting your employer.
Yeah, but I'm not doing anything here that's impacting, or we're just finding out information, right? This isn't a decision or anything. Like, all I'm doing at this point, I think, is getting information.
It's up to you to declare whether you have a conflict of interest or not.
Well, yes, I've declared that I have a conflict of interest when it comes to the college in the past. But at this meeting, I don't see this as a conflict of interest where I have to leave the room.
You wouldn't have to leave the room. You would just be sitting in the gallery and not participating in the discussion.
Yeah.
But it is up to you to declare your own conflict of interest.
Yeah, no, I don't have.
You don't. And is there anyone on this council that disagrees with this?
With all due respect, if it's a conflict of interest at this stage, it's a conflict of interest still at this stage, and it is your employer.
Yes.
And so, for the record, I would say it's a conflict, but that's up to you to decide. Sorry.
If there's discussions in here, like if this was an issue of me having to step out, I should have stepped out earlier. And listening to, I do declare that when it comes to the college, they are my employer, and I have a conflict of interest. I have no questions, I will say that right out. Right now, we're just having a discussion, and we're getting information from the college. I do not see sitting here and taking in information as a conflict of interest.
It will be if you ask questions. That's what I think basically Councillor Long and actually myself are concerned with. I don't have a problem with you sitting in the gallery also, because this is a public meeting.
Yes.
It, as long as you do not participate. So again, I'm asking you, if you choose to participate, are you basically saying, no, I don't have a conflict?
My question didn't have anything to do with a conflict of interest in any of that. But.
All right.
Okay, and so.
Just a minute, Councillor Gilroy.
I was going to put my hand up at the same time. I agree with Councillor Long on this, but I'm waiting to see how the questions are presented. and how they're presented to whether it is a conflict. Okay?
I'm going to talk to Councillor Rose.
Do we not think that the more information that we can pull now, while we have potentially somebody to answer the questions, there's lots of value for everybody. There's value for those that are listening. There's value for the gallery. There's definitely value for us. I don't see that there's any harm in any one of us asking questions right now.
And Councillor Long, one last question, and then we're moving on.
A conflict is a conflict is a conflict. Only you can decide and declare that conflict. We all know that. And so I would like this process to be as clean as possible. We've already had in-camera or non-public meetings, and when there shouldn't have been. And we've had members of the public attend in-camera meetings who shouldn't have been. We've had people who have been in this in-camera, non-public meetings who were talking in public about the in-camera meeting. This is tainted already, and we have residents who are going to be impacted by this in a big way for 3 years of construction, and they're supposed to be consulted after the fact, and will be consulted after the fact regarding traffic flows, parking, what should be there, what shouldn't be there. And we have residents who are going to have construction for the next 3 years in their backyard, and they've never been asked once. We have an issue, and it's not so clear cut. And the changes in the MGA are coming up this spring that will require educational facilities to deal with councils and towns and follow the procedures that we have in place.
Let's move back to the conflict.
So I want this to be as clean as possible. I don't want to have it muddied up.
Okay.
That's your call.
All right, so what did you decide?
I'll wait and see if my question comes out, and if it doesn't, then I'll ask it at the end.
Second time around?
Yeah.
All right. At this point, I believe that there is quite a few people that believe that I am not in favor of this, and I was quite clear at the forum that I am in favor of this project, but I would like to see more public consultation on this. Councillor Long?
Again, who's not in favor of it? I instructed a college for years. It's a great opportunity for this community, but not at all costs. It has to be done with good governance, and it has to be done with respect for the people of this community. Now, your board of directors, the representatives rather for the High Prairie School Division, said that they fully understand the democratic process. I question that, because we plan this community. We are working hard to try to get this community back on track. We have cemeteries scattered all over from 1956 onward, all surrounded really nicely by industrial parks. Poor planning, poor vision. And now we have a plot of land that is going to have high school traffic. Hopefully. We don't know because they don't have funding. But if that goes, we're going to have college staff, cleaning staff, high school staff ×2, the traffic for all the kids ×2, in the highest, most densely populated part of town with tons of little kids in this community. Not to mention the mature neighborhoods that you will be building in their backyard. And not once did your representatives go out and talk to those neighbors and to your future neighbors as to how this might impact their neighborhood. Not only that, but when you sent your letter off to the ministries, the paragraph that you had in there talking about the consultation and the work with the town of High Prairie and Big Lakes County, that paragraph was taken out. And I wonder if it's shovel ready for spring of 2018 because money might not be there is the real issue, or is it because you don't want to have to deal with the changes that are coming in the MGA regarding schools, building, and towns, and that you'll be required to deal with the town. And that puts up a flag for me. I want this. I want it. I think it's a great idea. I question 3 years of construction, of asphalt, of pavement, of extra traffic, and then the schools are to be built somewhere after that. And you hope that they use this north end for parking, because that would be the best way to go. We haven't even got a parking plan from you guys. We don't have a concept of what it looks like. We don't know how big it's going to be. We don't know what the disruption for the neighborhoods are going to be. That's our responsibility. And you guys thought it would be just great to do it in a whatever, non-camera, non-public meeting, your words. And so we don't have that luxury. And we have to follow a process. And so the in-camera meeting that took place was wrong, but unfortunately it did. And now we have to tell and sell this to our community and to the residents who will be impacted. And you guys don't care. You just want to get it built for free, get that land for free, get it clean and timely. At whose expense? At the residents of that neighborhood. We haven't asked them. They might be 100% in favor of it, but you don't know, nor do we. And that's the conundrum that you've put us in. Because you thought that this was a great thing, and let's not even include the town on it because they want the hospital site. So we'll just do it our way, the hell with them. And unfortunately, Dan, now we have 2 whole communities, plus all around Birch Crescent and all of the other neighborhoods that have not been consulted. Hundreds of people, hundreds of families have not been given the courtesy to say, this is what we're proposing. You've been part of this. You sat here, or you sat in an elected position, I believe you said. So you would understand that there's a process to be followed. I don't buy it. I'm not accepting of it. You've overstepped your authority, I think. At least you've overstepped the respect of the people in this community by not even consulting them. Here it is, this is where it's going. What do you think?
Okay.
Let the shovel be in. It's wrong.
Did you want to continue? Or
I didn't hear a question.
okay.
I heard a speech, but I didn't hear a question.
It was a statement.
Yeah.
And that statement is that your process was flawed, and do you not see that being a problem? Do you not see that that's a legitimate concern on behalf of the town council? Do you not see it as being a legitimate concern for the residents in that neighborhood?
The town council has to define its own concerns. I no more attempt to define your concerns than you should be defining mine. As far as the municipal involvement in this, as I said earlier, over half of the stakeholder meetings had municipal involvement. Everything I've said tonight does not come as news to the people who've attended those meetings. We are down to 2 pieces of land, either the Fish and Wildlife that we already own or the land that's being transferred. There's no other one. Why anyone would spend money to acquire and clean other land and take out of that 21.6 million, several $million dollars, simply doesn't make sense to us, because if we were to reduce, because of that, reduce our budget, we would then be reducing the size of the building, which in turn reduces the scope of the programs being offered to the public. And we're not prepared to do that. We are prepared to come as soon as we're ready, which I said expect will be in January, to go to the public to get their concerns. Yes, parking areas and things like that are of a concern. I would guess that the parking can be flexible. It really does depend on again, a three-way partnership on how to develop the larger piece. There's nothing saying that the parking has to be, excuse me, in one particular area. But we're prepared to go to the public. If there's vehement resistance to the idea, we'll build on our own land. But as I said, the problem with building our own land, although it's something that is there and it's free and it's clean and it's timely, is it does not have the partnership potential. And that's what we want for the community, the partnership potential. And the only way to get that partnership potential is to appear on some school grounds somewhere in this town. And that happens to be the oldest school and the one that the Department of Education is most likely to fund replacement of, so that the buildings can be repurposed. And that's where we're in. In fact, we feel that the partnership not only solves a problem for us, that is, it gives us the campus that we're looking for and the scope of programs that we're looking for, but it also helps the two school systems, because they're both going to have to make the case that they need new high school. The separate school is also about a 1955 construction, the inner core there. So Pratt is what, 1967? Okay, so the buildings here are old, but having a partnership, particularly co-location, is very attractive to government. And it's also something that's very attractive to the college. We seek co-location. As I said, I'm going to other meetings. We've got co-location in Gift Lake. Wherever we can get co-location with a high school or a school, we go for it every time. We're not one of these colleges that keeps high schools at arm's length. We want to be partners with people. And the partnership is what gives us the program scope. We will have public consultation, but we're really down to two pieces of land that meet our criteria and allow us to seek the program scope that we really want to find in the community. That's all. And we'll continue to have stakeholder meetings, I'm sure, all the way along. We've had enough of them so far, and I'm sure we'll have the same number again.
Before you start, Councillor Tanaka, when we go around again, I will speak to the representatives of the municipality that attended your meeting and the timelines as to what meetings we attended and when we were not.
Oh, I know what the meetings.
Yeah, but I think
the
the
municipalities
rest of
got involved in November of 2016, but the three principal partners have been discussing this project as early as May of 2015.
Councillor Tanaka?
Thank you for coming and
I just live a block and a half. It's not a big effort on my part.
and sharing with us what the vision of Northern Lakes College is. During this whole process, it seems, or it feels, personally, it feels as part of town council that we have been somewhat left out of the decision in terms of where it is, what you're doing. You've also said that you've got designs in place by November.
No, sorry, a designer.
Our design will be chosen by November.
By Remembrance Day, yeah.
By Remembrance Day. You want to be digging by the 2018. Somewhere in this, the consultation with the public seems to be missing. It seems that you're going with a vision, a design. This is where we're going to put it. We're going to start digging, and then we're going to go to the public and say, "What do you think?" And then if there's vehement denial or refusal to accept that location, then you'll go over to where you're at the Fish and Wildlife. Nope.
No,
Am I
the timeline
misunderstanding?
is that we expect to have a designer. I think the competition closes November 3rd. We'll have a designer in place. We'll have basic sketches worthy of public conversation by middle of January. Then depending on the feedback that we receive there, and we'll have ongoing consultation with the stakeholders, we will move toward a final design. And only then will there be a shovel in the ground. I don't expect a shovel in the ground until, quite frankly, sometime this year, next year.
But from council's perspective, it almost feels like our legs have been cut out from under us, because we're really, it appears to me that we really don't seem to be having any input as to location or anything. It's like, okay, this is it. Those met your 3 criteria of free, clean, and timely, but it almost appears that you've gone and made that decision already without consulting anybody or even coming to the town saying, this is where we want to put it. Does that work for you guys? Like, there seems to be a disconnect between the parties that are all involved. You know, the municipalities, the citizens, the college, unless I'm interpreting that incorrect.
I've got a schedule, I'm not going to get into it, but we've had a large number of meetings. The core 3 and the municipalities, both the town and the county. At most of those meetings, the chief executive or their counterpart have attended, and their chair or the political head of the organization. So in my case, I've attended, and the president, Ann Everett, has. In the case of Holy Family, Betty Turpin, who is the superintendent, and the local trustee has attended, and on occasion, the chair of Holy Family have attended. In the case of High Prairie School Division, I think it has always been the superintendent and the chair. In the case of the town of High Prairie, I think it's always been the mayor, and occasionally I think the chief administrative officer was there. And in the case of the county, at the beginning, the chief administrative officer was there, but the Reeve has always been there. I am confident that all 5 parties, with their representatives, reported back to their bodies, as I do at every Board of Governors meeting. I report back to my board all of the meetings I attend, and if there's meetings coming up, we discuss, you know, what our perspective should be. But I keep the Board of Governors of Northern Lakes College fully informed as to what's been going on, as I say, since May of 2015, and I'm fully confident that all of the other bodies, like ours, with both political and senior administrative representation, have done likewise. So I am assuming that you've been fully consulted as a body, just like the other 4 have.
Yes?
The last thing I would like to say is, and I'm speaking for myself, and I'm assuming I'm speaking for all of council as well. I don't think there's anybody on council who's not in favor of the college and its vision. It's just a question of where and how it's going to come together.
I'm confident of that support, as indeed we've received very clear confidence from our educational partners and from the county as well. You would be correct in saying this is all about money, because it's money that determines the size of the building, and it's the size of the building that determines the scope of the program opportunities for the partnership. So the less money we spend that isn't directly into the size of the building, the better off we are. And that's why we've said free, clean and timely. We don't want any delays that cost us money. We don't want to do any reclamation that costs us money, and we don't want to have to buy land that costs us money, because money determines size, determines scope.
Councillor Rose?
Hi, Dan. I just want to say that I do very strongly support the collaborative project. I think that you guys being willing to talk with Holy Family and High Prairie Elementary is going to allow the region to prosper, to see transition rates improve. We have a struggle here in the area, and I think that keeping the project as a collaborative project is definitely the advantage. Now, I know not everybody's been privy to every meeting, but I know that the information that we have received from the school divisions and regarding the land transfer, they have shed a lot of light on the reasons behind. Now, it did hit us, like, we didn't realize. We thought that the hospital land was still on the chopping block for a while. We thought that was an option. After having opportunity to be in a few other meetings, well, we see the timeliness of it, right? We do understand that the government isn't working in a very efficient way on that piece of land. And we also were told the rationale as to why the piece of land that now has been transferred was. And they talked about the busing issues, they talked about the access, they talked about the student access, and I'm satisfied that it isn't a bad location. I think that unfortunately we had our heart set on a hospital location because we like the idea of that visible piece of land, and it was we already had the hospital on there. There was just going to be a replacement building. I think we all thought that would be a great idea. But the reality is the piece of land that you guys have chosen and the rationale behind it, after talking with all the superintendents and the board chairs, there's a lot of reasons why that piece of land makes sense. And I don't see that I don't see it as negative as everybody else does. I do have two questions. Do you guys in design, I know you're just going to designer right now, are you looking at like a multi-level building down, or is it the same size as the elementary now?
This is really speculative because things are just conceptual right now. But generally speaking, when you're building a building with shops, because of the height of the ceiling over shops, you generally wind up having at least part of the building just makes sense to go to a two-story. You know, put classrooms on a main floor and offices, whatever offices are needed upstairs. But that all depends. It makes, the closer you get to a cube, the more efficient the building is. Right. You know, so those things. The challenges that the hospital land presented became apparent to us over a year ago. And it was already known then that there was no budget for reclamation. And that's probably the big stumbling block right there, because it's the reclamation that costs, and it's the reclamation that makes it very untimely. One of the advantages, though, of us going in partnership on an existing educational reserve is we would then probably put on the market, well, not probably, we'll most certainly put on the market the Fish and Wildlife location and the downtown health campus. And I'm assuming that then will return to the private sector, and you'll be able to put property taxes on it. No. You know, I mean, it's the goal of, I think, all councils to expand their property base for that purpose. And in this case, it's possible to do because we're simply going from one basically educational plot of land to another.
No, for sure, and that is an advantage. The second question, Dan, is about the fact that you're going to have the elementary land or the elementary school in the same site as the college originally, right? And that could be for potentially a few years. Do you see that if there was no funding ever approved for the high schools? I mean, I know that it's likely that the high schools will get their funding eventually, but do you see that at all as a potential concern where you'll have a college? I know that, will that encompass the building that's there? There's a Butler building that's there.
It's the outreach.
Okay, the outreach.
Yeah.
So it'll encompass the outreach, so that will be gone. Yeah. Your college will be closer on that sort of piece of land. I guess what I'm seeing is eventually you could have a college and then a playground and then an elementary school. Do you see that as a challenge at all?
I expect that we will have that for a period of time. I don't see that as a challenge. We've been sitting on, if you look at our campuses now, I'm just thinking back over my own acquaintance with the college, which is now quite some time ago, well over half of our campuses are on school grounds.
Right.
It's just been a normal fact of life for us that we've got kids around, and for a long time we ran joint high schools with Northland School Division. With the exception, I think, of Wabasca, all of their high schools started as joint high schools with us.
I guess it's not that much different than the fact that you've got that, that you've actually got adult learners right now in that site. Right? There's adult learners that are traveling to the outreach school. That is a combination of high school and adult students, is it not, in outreach?
The outreach is, as presently constituted, is a school division program for children for whom the regular high school simply doesn't work. I've forgotten the attendance. They have, I think, I shouldn't say this because I don't know the September 30th count. It was the last September 30th count, I believe, was over 40, of which about 24 were quite regular attendees. And again, to point out, the students there don't come just from High Prairie School Division. They're also students under Holy Family.
Right.
And we've already made the commitment, signed off, that we will include an outreach in our building.
Yeah, it makes it a good fit, actually.
Yeah. And in fact, even if we wind up, for some reason not building there, I think it still makes a good fit that they come into our building. They'll be more comfortable there. I'm guessing attendance will improve, and achievement will follow. This is a long 15 minutes.
Well, it's an issue that is dear to council's heart. Councillor Gilroy, we'll go around the second time and then that will be it.
Part of what makes this very difficult is it's more of an idea of stewardship. Everyone here around this table has an obligation to all the voters, in fact, all the people of High Prairie, whether they are very poor or very rich, whether they own businesses or land. And I'm not going to get a speech like this because at the same time you have a stewardship of the money and of your trust at the college to do the very best. That's why they put you in charge. The problem is that we're having sort of conflicting stewardship ideas. And part of my concern on this, and I've been very vocal on it, is the children of that area, some of which over the weekend were having crab walking races across the road. 3 of them that were probably grade 3. And also at the same time watching our wonderful high school students during lunchtime rev their pickup trucks and race around the junior high, which I wish our peace officer was here because I know they did that, but they've also do that on private property, such as our church parking lot, twice last week. So they're not exactly angels in that sense. And my concern is for the people, the elderly people, the people who have no other way of get around except for the buggies, which sometimes hold kids that are too big for the buggies, but the parents can't carry them. And also the continuity within that public school. They have a family there, and though no one's allowed to publicly say it, there is a great fear that as this comes in, if we are to ignore that, it is a greater loss to the community. And so I'm trying to be fair to all the people, and that's why I agree with Councillor Lung that a voice from the community would be essential. And secondly, yes, I have been one who has been fighting, I guess, like Don Quixote, to get the hospital land, and been as frustrated as everybody else because of the delays with AHS and with our own MLA and her crew in helping us to achieve what we've worked hard for since I've been on council. So I know that's more of a statement, but I'm asking you to also as much as possible, when you're doing the design, please consider, especially the very low-income people in that area, and how you do your traffic in there, because a traffic count in July just doesn't cut it.
I'd like to remind you, as I said in my presentation, that most of our students come from that very area. Many of those children are the children of our students. We're very sensitive to where our students live. That's why we've encouraged the development of walkways to our current campus from that area. We're not ignorant of that population there because they're our population. We know about them. They're in our classrooms. Their kids come to our buildings. So we're not uncomfortable going in there, and we're going to be careful how we go in there.
Councillor Courtley?
Again, I'm behind you 100%. I think it's a great idea. I'm not going to spend a lot more time on this. I'm really happy that you guys are looking towards an arts program, possibly for the college. And
If I could just interject,
Yep.
that is one of the ideas that the school systems have been putting forward. It's not something that we're
sorry.
planning on our own. I don't want to mislead anyone, but it's certainly something that everybody around the table that was talking about it was quite excited about, and we're all willing to chip in to make it possible.
Okay. No, and that, with that being said, that would be better to have a bigger area for dance and for the arts, because the facilities we have ourselves, it's fine. We were just all right there, but it just isn't big enough, and that is a problem in our community. I think everybody would appreciate if it was built. So, again, thank you.
Councillor Panasic?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Dan, for coming down, and part of my questions was answered, and the rest of it I will address later.
Okay, I do have a few comments now. One is regarding the timeline. The timeline was such that we started from the municipal, the intermunicipal, which would be the county and the town. And we started the conversation amongst ourselves what to do when the new hospital was open and the old hospital then would be available. We invited the two school divisions and Northern Lakes College to our meeting. They may have been having meetings amongst themselves previous to that. We are unaware of that, the county and ourselves. The CAO and myself, being part of the intermunicipal, then started attending these meetings with the partnerships, and there was 5, and he listed them off quite clearly. The town's responsibility was to secure the hospital site, and you have been kept abreast of during memos, letters I wrote, going down to AUMA, lobbying the ministers, and I would have to say that as a partnership of 5, that we were very, very successful. We inspired Mr. Schmidt, the advanced education, and I think I'm going to take credit for that. Not so much that you didn't do work, but there was no real portion of there was no guarantee that you were going to be getting the money this year. You talked about it. But when we went actually down and spoke with the Martin Schmidt, the Honorable Martin Schmidt, all of a sudden it started to come together that yes, this is a good project. It is 2 high schools and it is NLC, and next year the money was available, and the announcement was specifically designed to say this is the beginning of a good partnership, which would lead me to believe that yes, we are going to have 2 high schools and Northern Lakes College. From the spring of From that announcement, previous to that, because that was in the spring of 2017, previous to that, November of 2016, there had been no communication whatsoever from the partnership meetings. Nobody would come to a meeting. I kept writing memos, which you still received, and letters, and I talked to the MLA, and I kept all of the partners involved trying to get this land. But they never met again. And the very next thing that came out after that announcement was the announcement from the High Prairie School Division, who said, we are going to give you land. And that was only a motion in the minutes that we don't even receive copies of. That's how we found out that all of a sudden, the big savior, High Prairie School Division, has now given land. When did the hospital site go off the table? We weren't aware of it. The county wasn't aware of it. Even Holy Family was not aware of it. And then you come to us and say, but you people were all involved. No, we weren't. So I am probably a little bit ticked that we were left out of this partnership conversation, and whoa, now you guys are causing waves. And if we don't build, my God, the sky will fall. And, you know, there's only a certain shelf life on provincial money. No, there is not a shelf life on provincial money. There are good projects and there are not so good projects. And this is a good project. This will be a project that will be either done by the NDP or it will be done by the next government, whatever government it is, because this is a project that makes sense. And we could lobby as a group and show those people, which we did. MLAs, Sarah Hoffman, Advanced Education, David Egan, everybody was really behind this. Now, where are we? We're the town of High Prairie and we're complaining that what is your problem? We are giving you this 21.6 million. You should be happy because Northern Lakes is happy, High Prairie School Division is happy, Holy Family not so much, but they're not rocking the boat. Why would they rock the boat? They have to come wherever you guys go. So, and then to be told, but Linda, the only reason that you're having a problem with this is because you want the hospital site. Well, I'm sorry, but the hospital site, any institution is an economic driver. This council is looking at prosperity for our town, definitely, and I make no bones about it. But prosperity for our town at what? Putting an institution on the back 40 where you're going to hide it away over there, cause major problems over there in our citizens, the children, the seniors that are always complaining. Anybody's about traffic, you're saying, well, don't worry about that. Our students walk. Yes, your students walk. Your institution is no problem. But who's following you? 2 high schools are following you with their 40 cars of high schools at the E.W. Pratt, which I count on a regular basis, 30 cars over of students. They're just students. We haven't got to the rest of the staff and the instructors and the I'm getting carried away here. But what I'm saying is, I didn't see the public consultation. I didn't even see us being involved. And we thought we were your partners. That's it. Councillor Long.
No, let me respond to that. You've been at a number of meetings.
You better believe I was
Yes.
at every one of them.
Your complaint seems to be, I don't know why you're taking it out at this meeting, your complaint seems to be about the school systems.
No.
Then what's the problem? Your complaint appears to be that they did a land transfer. That was at their initiative, with our support, admittedly, but then talk to the High Prairie School Division. But as far as the work that we've been doing on this, we started, the 3 principal partners started in May of 2015. I've had at least a half a dozen meetings with the minister. Anne has had many more than that with the deputy minister. We have met with 4 MLAs, not just our own, but the 3 other MLAs. We have constantly, in our agendas, when meeting with MLAs, had this on the agenda. We've met with the Minister of Energy, the MLA for Fairview, twice. We've met with the MLA for Athabasca Red Earth, I think 3 times. We've met with Debbie Jabbar, MLA for Peace River High Level, at least 3 times, and in addition, she attends our convocations and things like that. And then we've had any number of meetings with with the Minister of Children's Services, our own MLA. So we have been working very studiously, building relationships right across the board. We've had a large number of stakeholder meetings. We have been discussing various pieces of property all the way along. And at every meeting, I have said, when we get the check, we are going to go. We need land that we can get on fast. We don't have time. And if you think that government money doesn't have a shelf life, you're misguided. It does have a shelf life. All you have to have is a major downturn in revenues or a major shift in political ideology, never mind a party, and you'll get a new agenda from that government. And that government's agenda may not include otherwise very meritorious projects. We want that project going, and again, the money is important to us. The less we spend so-called off-site, the bigger the building and the bigger the scope of the program. Councillor Gilroy talked about conflict. I don't see any conflict here. We want a large program scope to have as powerful a partnership for high school and adult learners as possible. All of this other stuff are rub points, they're friction points, admittedly, and further meetings will have to be held to deal with them. But I don't see a conflict. The three partners are doing something that brings together the educational resources of this community to the betterment of the adults and the high school students. I just don't see a down from that. I just don't.
I agree. The adults and the youth of this community deserve the project that you've got. And
Thank you.
I am not saying that that is something that we don't want. We do want that. That's why we're supporting it. But I think it could have been a better project. But we were cut right out of it, and then we were told afterwards that you should be not complaining about it, because you should be happy. When the former mayor of Slave Lake comes to us and says, we're only going to talk about our project. When did this project become Northern Lakes project, Northern Lakes College project? It's their project. It's the taxpayers.
Yeah, it is.
It is the taxpayers of the province of Alberta that are funding your project.
Mm-hmm. Just like when you build something, it's your project because you're accountable to the funding agent. This is our project because we're accountable to the funding agent.
And you are not
the other partners, the school systems, will be accountable to the Department of Education and their funding agents when their turn comes. But right now, yes, the Board of Governors of Northern Lakes College is a corporate entity. And as a corporate entity, yes, we are accountable. I don't deny our accountability one bit. I gladly accept that we are accountable for this project, that it's up to us to maximize the effectiveness of this project. And I come back to it, dollars, size, program scope. Program scope is the effectiveness of this project. And I have no problems Minister Schmidt holding me accountable and my governors accountable for the project. Not at all.
Not at all. So when he comes to you and he says, well, so have you consulted with the elected officials of the county and the town? And you have...
We have kept the minister and the MLA and up to date with our stakeholder meetings. They know about our stakeholder meetings. I am sure that our partners have kept the Minister of Education up to date. In fact, I know they have. So I know that key people within Cabinet know that the various organizations that ultimately are accountable to them have been talking to each other. We have, as I said, I've met at least a half a dozen times with Minister Schmidt. I met before him with the minister before. But there's nothing going on here that we're keeping from the department. And again, if you're concerned about accountability, I have none. I am eager to take accountability for this project. I love it.
Councillor Long.
Glad you love it. We're accountable to the citizens of this community. You have stated that you went in and you had shown your support to the High Prairie School Division and that they came forward with this land deal, and you guys sat down and you talked about it, and it's gonna be a great thing, and you were all for it because it was free, and it's gonna be timely, and it's clean, and we're gonna put it through. And you know what? You did. You made your deal, and you put it through, and you didn't consult us once. You didn't give us the courtesy of letting us know what was happening.
All five stakeholders knew about it.
Yeah? And so what about the residents in this area that are gonna have what? How big is this gonna be? How many square feet is this campus supposed to be? Let alone the footprint of the parking lot for 3 schools. How big is that going to be, and how's it gonna impact
You'll have to talk
all
to
of
the school
residents
systems
around
about that.
You don't know because you didn't ask them because you don't give a shit. That's the way it is. I cannot believe you sit here and throw that at us in an arrogant manner that you have.
Throw what at you?
Okay, that's it.
And not
No,
take
sorry,
into
throw what at
consideration
you?
once, Dan,
Counselor Long.
the people who live in that area.
Counselor Long.
You say that the people
I
that are
expect-
going to your college live in that area. Yes, they do.
I
But so do
expect-
all the little kids that go there and walk back and forth. And you're going to have all of that traffic, and you haven't even got a plan for the traffic. Why? Because you're supposed to come talk to us.
No, I expect that every
After.
stakeholder will in fact communicate with their stakeholders. That every stakeholder will communicate with their constituencies. We have communicated with our constituencies. I expect that the Reeve has communicated with his constituencies. I expect the mayor has communicated with her constituencies, and so have the 2 chairs. And in fact, I know that that's the case. Now, the degree to which each of them individually do this, both in a public sphere and in a private sphere, I leave that up to the mayor, the Reeve, and the 2 chairs. That's how they do that, that's fine. I have my own responsibilities. We have communicated this back to my board. We've had various meetings of a community nature with the Community Education Committee, both the Community Education Committee in this town and the regional one. We have been communicating with our constituencies. I expect that you will have done likewise, and I expect that you will be in the best position to know the best way to do so.
Based on what information, Dan?
On what? On
How
their,
big it is? On how big the building's going to be? Where it's going to be? How
No,
close is the
I'm
offset
telling
to
you,
the
based-
residential areas?
based
We have
on-
no idea, because you don't.
No.
You don't know how big it is. You don't know what the design is.
Not yet,
You don't
no.
know it, no. But we're supposed to sell this to our community, and we're
No.
supposed to say, hey, swallow it, it's okay.
No, I haven't
Take
said that. Hold on, you're putting words in my mouth. I haven't
sure
said
am.
any of that.
How else are we supposed to? How else are we supposed to communicate to our residents and to our constituents, this is what's going to go into your backyard? You want NIMBY, it's going to be there. And so this is what's going to go into your backyard, we think. But we really don't know because they haven't consulted with us. And they really
We
don't
know that it'll be approximately the size of the current 3 facilities, because that's the program scope we're going for. We have those rough ideas, but in terms of whether it's a 2-story building or whether it's a rectangle or a cube or whatever it is, no, we don't have that. But we do know the basic program scope will duplicate what we already have in this community. And that's the traits that we offered at Tolko, the health programs at the health campus, and the academic programs elsewhere. That's what we're going for. So it's really a matter, I expect that we will basically, in some configuration, match that square footage, plus I hope about 10%.
without everyone's consulting with the residents in the neighborhood.
Hold it. Every stakeholder was there.
Responsibility,
No,
that's ours.
it was, yes, it was your responsibility, and I expect you to take that responsibility.
We will.
Good.
Building permits and all.
What does building permits mean? No, what does that mean?
You need a building permit to build.
Yeah, we'll meet all the requirements
And
of
we'll
it.
make sure that we meet all the requirements for our residents as well.
Okay, we'll wait. Counselor
Don't
Denaki.
like that, eh? Foolish,
This has gotten a little farther out of hand than I was hoping it would, in terms of what people were expecting, and from yourself coming, again, thank you. It is a good project. It is a great thing for the town of High Prairie. And I'm just hoping that somewhere we can come to, I don't want to say a happy agreement or that benefits everybody, the citizens, the partners, and move forward on this.
The program scope will be the ultimate judge of that. Yes. If we can get the program scope, particularly if we can add some of the programs that we don't currently have, then I think we will have done a really good job for this community.
Okay, Councillor Bose?
Dan, how many students currently do you have at I guess the two campuses, because you only have two campuses here in town, eh? I should know that. It's like...
Actually, I don't know that because my president at the last minute was unable to come with the statistical background.
I'm thinking it's not more than 100, and a lot of those are outreach. Brian, do you know?
I think it's a conflict of interest for me to answer.
Okay, well, and then that would be the 44 students that are currently there in that site so it may grow.
Well, you're looking at the students, including the high school students that were coming from High Prairie and Donnelly to the Tolko site. You're looking at the academic students at the Fish and Wildlife site, and you're looking at the health careers.
And then the combination of the outreach students that are currently
And then,
there.
of course, you're going to throw the outreach students in there, and they have renewed the funding. Last year was a low year. I think we only had about 100 dual credit students in the system, 15, I think, somewhere of that order here. But the funding had been suspended for a year. The Department of Education has now renewed that funding, and so there's been a significant uptake in dual credit. And so I expect dual credits to grow. Everywhere we go in terms of any kind of, for instance, elected official, Northern Alberta elected officials meetings and things like that, dual credits is the buzzword.
I know, and I was disappointed to see our numbers down. So it's good to see that, well, one, the project will help build numbers as well as the funding being available, and the numbers can build from there. Has there been, as far as you know, I know you can maybe just, if you've heard of funding being pulled back, because that's been the concern. Obviously, that's your concern, right? The funding potentially can be pulled back at any time. Has there been funding pulled back on educational projects? Or has it happened to you guys in the past? Like, I've heard rumor that it did happen before, and then I've heard from others that it didn't happen.
We've been, and this is a time that I wasn't associated with the college. At one time, things looked extraordinarily optimistic that we would be able to build a campus adjacent to the new hospital, right, and really turn the hospital into a training hospital. Yeah. And we were very, very keen on that. We had a lot of political support for it. The beginnings of that took place just when I was leaving. And then that one went awry. It got caught up, I think, in the general budget confusion that project suffered from for a long time. Lack of clarity, basically, about the budgetary costs of that project. And so it began to shed other things. And one of the things that got shed was the sort of the concept of a training hospital. I'm trying to think of when our last major funding was. I think probably the campus in Wabasca, because if I'm not mistaken, our Slave Lake campus now is, it's got to be at least 30 years old now. So, and that was a big one. Peace River we inherited, High Level we inherited. Yeah, I think probably Wabasca was the best. There's not been a very heavy investment in rural institutions because, except for ours where enrollments are going up, many of the other institutions are suffering the reverse. And that really weakens your ability to secure funding.
So, Dan, the plan now is to go to design.
That's right.
And you hope to, after choosing a designer in November, have a design that's ready for community engagement by February-ish?
Not a design in the sense that there's any kind of working drawings, but just conceptual. We've had, as part of our preparation to get this funding, we got the minister and the deputy minister to put together a sort of an infrastructure team that included people from Alberta Infrastructure. And they came and visited us several months back, about a year ago, I think, and we showed them a number of different facilities, our community facilities as well, and of course, we spent time here in High Prairie to give them a really good grasp of what it was like to try to run a campus in a community without public transportation in 3 quite separate locations. And I think that really helped us bring the bureaucrats on side. That is the people who advised the deputy and the minister. So that was really helpful.
So there will be a public engagement, and that might be the part that we're sort of missing here, is we were maybe thinking that the public engagement should have already been, but until you're at design, that's about when we should be looking at that as a community, and then the community can engage if there is an outcome.
We had architectural drawings at the announcement, and those were architectural drawings designed for the land that we have.
Exactly, yeah.
And so the building orientation and the general scope of the building was there. Now with a slightly different configuration of land, the land that we have is a long rectangle with a long frontage compared to the High Prairie Elementary site, which is a deep site with limited frontage. So the orientation of the building would probably have to change. But we've done enough work to have a general idea, again, because believe it or not, $21 million doesn't go very far. And I keep coming back to that program scope. We've got, our goal is to duplicate what we have, and if possible, add something in the order of 10-15%. And then likewise, if we can do some fundraising and add 10-15% to that 21 million, even better. Like I'd really like to get 25 million together. And if we did, then we can expand the scope. Although again, I must emphasize that distance learning has enormous capacity for expanding scope. It's what we're looking for in the building is the capacity to have the shops and the labs and the clinics and all of that stuff, because the theory portion increasingly is done away from our buildings. They're done in the community, in the student's own home community, and then they'll come for their labs. And then of course you have the population of High Prairie itself coming for the theory stuff as well. But you can expect that the labs, where you would do what might call practicum or field experience, will draw people from outside of High Prairie to come for that. Just like our building here attracts practical nurse students from all over the place, including Edmonton.
Do you find, this is slightly off topic, but do you find internet a bit of an issue?
Broadband is always behind. And I think you find that for those of you who are running businesses, and like my business could not operate without broadband because it's those blueprints chew up a lot of bandwidth when they're being communicated back and forth. Same thing with anything else. The more stuff we put up there, the more strain there is on it. So I'm glad the Alberta government back when did SuperNet. And I'm glad that there's more money being poured in, both at also I think at the federal level, to enhance it. And we do have SuperNet to all of our community campuses and the community access points of the day when SuperNet was installed.
So those are all those campsites?
Yeah, the campsites.
Okay.
We have campsites in places like Lacrete, East Prairie, Paddle Prairie. We had one in Swan Hills until finally even the demand for a campsite was insufficient.
Okay. And I think with that we'll wrap it up. I will I only have one comment regarding, and I did mention this before, is that the town of High Prairie has not received any communication from the partnerships since November of 2016. And although you talked again about, the mayor and the CAO were in charge of making sure that the council was kept up to date, they were kept up to date until November of 2016. So at that point, there was no further communication from the partnerships. You can go back after and look at your minutes, and I'm pretty sure the CAO will agree with me as to when this was that. But we would like to thank you as a council to come here and listen to some of our concerns and to give us an overview of what your project is. I'm happy to see that you're looking at the 3 portions of the campuses, although the Tolko campus has not been used since 2015, and the health center, practical nursing, I don't think it's been transferred to Slave Lake, so I'm not even sure what's over at that health
When
center.
did that get transferred?
You would have to ask your staff.
It's constantly, it's being used.
So as far as I'm aware, it is not being used anymore, but you would have to talk afterwards to your staff as to what program.
Where's your office, Brian?
I'm in the health center.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, so thank you very much, and we appreciate the fact that you took the time to come here. Very much so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dad.
And I'm going to call a break now.
Have a long journey home.